The monster in the sky. The night was quiet in the small town of Dry Hollow. The stars were clear and the desert air was cool. A 14-year-old boy named Eli sat on the roof of his house, looking up at the sky with his small telescope. He loved space. It made him feel like anything was possible. Suddenly, something strange happened. A bright flash cut across the sky, faster than a plane, bigger than a shooting star. It burned red and gold, leaving a glowing trail behind it. The object roared as it fell, shaking the ground like thunder. Then, silence. Eli stood up, heart pounding. He knew it wasn't normal. "That wasn't a meteor," he whispered. The next morning, the town was buzzing. People said it was just space junk or a meteor. But Eli didn't believe them. He knew where it had landed, somewhere in the desert near the old dried riverbed. He decided to go check it out after school. He packed a flashlight, his phone, and some snacks. No one noticed him leave. His mom was working late at the diner, and his dad was gone, like always. Eli walked for almost an hour. As the sun dipped below the hills, the desert turned cold and quiet. Shadows grew longer. Then he saw it: burnt sand, broken rocks, and a giant hole in the ground. Something had crashed here. He stepped closer. His heart raced. There was smoke still rising from the crater, and a strange humming sound filled the air. Suddenly he heard movement. Eli ducked behind a rock and held his breath. Something was walking. Slow, heavy. It made deep thudding sounds, like metal scraping against rock. Then he saw it. A giant shape moved through the smoke. It was tall, maybe 10 feet or more, covered in black armor with glowing red lines. Its arms were long, ending in claws. Its face looked like a mask, no mouth, just two bright eyes. Eli froze. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The creature stopped. It turned its head toward him. Eli gasped. The creature didn't attack. It didn't roar or chase him. Instead, it turned away and walked into the hills. "What was that?" Eli whispered. He waited until it was gone, then ran home as fast as he could. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the sounds, the crash, the heavy steps, the humming. The creature didn't seem evil. It looked lost, maybe even hurt. The next day, things got stranger. Military trucks arrived in town. Soldiers blocked the road to the desert. No one was allowed near the crash site. People asked questions but got no answers. Eli knew something big was being hidden. He needed to see the creature again. That evening, he went back. This time, he followed the trail. Deep footprints in the sand, some with spots of dark liquid. That looked like blood. As night fell, he reached an old cave in the hills. The footprints led inside. He took out his flashlight and stepped in slowly. Inside, the cave was quiet. Cold. The walls were rough, and water dripped from the ceiling. Then, he saw it. The creature was sitting against the wall, breathing slowly. Its armor was cracked. Sparks flickered from its side. It was injured. Eli raised his light. The creature looked up, eyes glowing in the dark. Eli didn't move. He slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a bottle of water. He placed it on the ground and stepped back. The creature looked at the bottle, then at Eli. After a long pause, it reached out with one clawed hand and picked it up. It opened the top with strange fingers and drank slowly. Eli watched in silence. The creature leaned back, tired. For a moment it looked peaceful. "Are you alone?" Eli asked softly. The creature didn't speak, but something in its eyes changed. Maybe it understood. Maybe it felt something. A deep rumble echoed in the distance. Eli turned. Lights flashed outside the cave. Military drones. He looked at the creature. "They're coming," he whispered. The creature stood slowly. It looked at Eli again. It didn't run. It didn't growl. It simply stepped into the shadows, disappearing deeper into the cave. Eli stood, alone, heart racing. What was that thing? Why didn't it attack him? He didn't know the answers yet, But one thing was clear. It wasn't just a monster. It was something more, and the world wasn't ready for it. The beast that doesn't kill. The cave was dark and quiet. Eli couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen the night before. A monster that looked like a machine but acted like something else. It didn't attack, it didn't roar, it drank water, and its eyes, they weren't just glowing, they were thinking. The military had arrived at the crash site fast. Too fast. People in town said nothing, but Eli noticed strange things. Black trucks without license plates, soldiers with no names on their uniforms, and loud machines flying over the hills every night. Nobody talked about the creature. Nobody wanted to know the truth, but Eli did. He returned to the cave 3 nights in a row. He brought food, more water, bandages from his mom's first aid box. The creature didn't speak, but it watched, listened, accepted the gifts. On the 4th night, it moved closer to him. Eli didn't run. He just sat, holding a flashlight in one hand and a peanut butter sandwich in the other. "Do you have a name?" he asked quietly. The creature's chest glowed faintly. There was no mouth, no voice, but then a deep sound came. It wasn't words, not at first. Just vibration. Then came something clear, mechanical, broken, but real. Ka-rock. Eli blinked. Karok? The creature nodded once. Its red eyes flickered. Then it leaned back, breathing slow, like it had used the last of its energy just to speak. Karok. That was its name. From that moment, something changed. Karok started showing signs of thought. It moved slowly now, like it was learning how to control its strength. It would pick up stones and balance them into towers. It watched Eli's phone screen when he played music or showed videos of oceans, birds, or kids playing soccer. Sometimes it reached out, not to grab, but to touch. Gently, like it had never been allowed to feel things before, but its body was failing. One night, Karok stumbled and fell. Sparks shot from its side. Its armor cracked open slightly. Beneath the metal was something alive. Not fully flesh, not fully machine. Eli stared. "You're not a robot," Karok responded, voice softer now. Broken, but full of meaning. "I was made to destroy." Eli shook his head. "You don't have to be that anymore." Karok looked at him for a long time, then nodded. Back. In town, people started noticing more strange things. Animals went missing again, trees were found burned. One morning, a huge power cut hit the town. Everything went dark. The mayor said it was a technical error, but Eli knew something else was happening. That night, Karok didn't meet him in the cave. Eli searched the desert hills alone, calling softly. "Karok? Are you okay?" He found him behind an old radio tower kneeling. A deep wound on his back pulsed with blue light. Something had attacked him. "What happened?" Karok turned his head slowly. "They found me." "Who? The soldiers?" Karok shook his head. Then he stood, barely able to keep balance. Not humans, hunters. That's when Eli realized the truth. Something worse than the military was coming. Something from space. Something that wanted Karok dead, or back in chains. Later that same night, Eli heard a strange noise above the town. A high-pitched, metallic scream, followed by a pulse of blue light in the sky. People ran. Outside, dogs barked. Windows shook. Something invisible moved above them, too fast to see but strong enough to shake the earth. The next morning, the mayor said it was a weather balloon. Eli knew better. He ran to the cave. Karok stood at the entrance, fully awake now. The cracks on his armor had sealed. The red lines on his body glowed brighter than before. "They are here," he said. "Who?" Eli asked. Karok looked toward the sky. "The Zarth. What do they want?" Karok paused. "Me." "Why?" He hesitated, then replied, I escaped. Karak finally told his story. He was created by the Zarth Empire, a cruel alien, race that controlled planets through fear. He was one of many war beasts, built to destroy cities, crush armies, and silence rebellions. He had no voice, no feelings, only orders, but something happened during his last battle. A human colony fought back, not with guns, but with care. A child had reached out to him during chaos. A small act of kindness broke something inside him. A part of him woke up. He refused to kill. He fled the battle, crashed into deep space, slept for years, until Earth, until Eli. The Zarth were tracking him now. They wanted him back, not to save him, but to erase him. Karak looked at Eli. His voice was deeper now, stronger. They will come for me, and they will not care about your people. Eli stepped forward. Then we stop them. Together. Karak looked down. I do not want to kill again. Then don't. Just protect. A silence passed between them. Then Karak turned and faced the desert. They arrive soon. How soon? Karak's body lit with a pulse of energy. Tonight. That evening, Eli climbed a hill outside town. He looked up at the stars, wondering what would happen next. His phone buzzed. No signal. Power lines flickered again, and then he saw it. A shape appeared in the sky, not falling like Karak's ship. This one hovered, smooth, silent, deadly. From its belly, something dropped. A second figure. Sleek. Thin, sharp, it landed in the desert with a soft thud. It was hunting, and it was not like Karak. It was faster, colder, merciless. Human boy, alien weapon. The night wind howled over the desert, carrying dust and silence. Eli stood on the hill, staring at the thing that had fallen from the sky. It was not like Karak. No burning trail, no crash, no chaos. This one had landed, quietly. That made it worse. He felt it in his chest. The air had changed. Something evil had arrived. He ran down the hill toward the cave. Karak stood at the cave entrance, armor glowing faintly. His body had repaired itself using energy from the desert's heat, but his movements were still slow. His mind was heavier than his wounds. Eli slid down the rocks and stopped beside him. It's here, he said, breathing hard. Karak nodded once. I know. What do we do? Karak's eyes flickered. He looked at the town in the distance, quiet and unaware. I fight. You leave. Eli stepped forward. No. We stay together. Karak looked down at the boy. His claws twitched, not in anger, but fear. Not for himself. For Eli. He remembered the child from the colony years ago. The one who reached for him with kindness. The one who was crushed in a Zarth airstrike moments later. He wouldn't let that happen again. You do not understand, Karak said slowly. That thing, it is not like me. It was not made to think. It was made to hunt. It cannot feel. Then why send it for you? Karak's voice dropped. Because I learned how to feel. That night, they waited. Karak placed his clod, hands on the rocks, and sent small pulses through the ground, his way of sensing movement. Eli watched, amazed. Karak's armor shifted, plates sliding into combat mode, but his eyes still held sorrow. Then the pulse came. It is close, Karak whispered. Suddenly a figure appeared at the edge of the cave. It didn't walk. It floated slightly above the ground. Thin like a skeleton, silver and black, eyes glowing blue. It had no mouth, no voice. It didn't need one. Karak stepped in front of Eli. The hunter's arms turned into blades. Karak didn't move. For a full minute, the two stared at each other. Machine versus machine, past versus future. Then the hunter moved. It struck first. A blur of silver. Karak dodged barely, rolling to the side. Rock exploded where the blade hit. Eli ran to the back of the cave, hiding behind old crates. Karak leapt forward, smashing into the hunter with full force. The cave shook, but the hunter didn't fall. It twisted mid-air, kicked Karak across the stone, and turned toward Eli. That was its target now. Karak roared, not with rage but with something else. Something human. Fear. He tackled the hunter before it reached Eli, slamming it into the wall. Sparks flew. Karak growled, claws digging into the enemy's armor. But the hunter adapted. It shifted form, its arm turned into a cannon and fired. A blast point blank into Karak's chest. Karak crashed to the ground, smoke rose from his body. Eli ran to him, screaming, "Get up! You can't stop now!" Karak opened one eye, his voice was weak. "Run, please." Eli shook his head. No. The hunter stepped forward, raising its weapon. Suddenly, Karak moved. Fast, he grabbed Eli and jumped, straight through the cave wall, crashing into the open desert. They rolled across the sand. Eli coughed, half buried in dust. Karak pulled himself up. One arm hung useless, his chest sparked. "We must hide." They made it to the old mining tunnels at the edge of town. Eli helped Karak inside. The tunnels hadn't been used in years. Dusty, broken, forgotten, but Karak knew how to survive in darkness. He sat quietly, breathing heavy, while Eli wrapped his wounds with wires and cloth. "Why are you helping me?" Karak asked. Eli looked at him, confused. "Because you're not a monster." Karak turned his face away. "I was, for a long time. Not anymore." Karak was silent for a while. Then he said, "They built me to destroy, to end lives. But when I saw kindness, something changed. I felt guilt, pain. I didn't understand it. Now I do." Eli nodded. "That means you're alive, not just a machine." Karak looked at him. For the first time, someone saw him not as a weapon, but as a person. The next morning, helicopters flew over the town. Soldiers moved through the desert. But they weren't looking for Eli. They were looking for Karak. The military had found the crash site again, but now there were strange footprints around it, ones they hadn't seen before. Alien footprints. Too sharp. Too clean. The Zarth hunter wasn't hiding. It was waiting. Eli knew they couldn't run forever. He needed help. But who would believe? A kid? So he did something dangerous. He uploaded a short video to the internet, just 10 seconds. A shadow of Karak helping a lost child in the cave. A soft voice saying, "I will not harm you." No face, no names, just proof. Within an hour, it went viral. People started talking. Was this a hoax? A new alien? Some said it was a movie trailer. Others believed. Then came the message. A voice, distorted and robotic, hacked into the towns. "Emergency broadcast system. Return the unit, or be erased." The Zarth had spoken. Karak stood at the entrance of the tunnel, armor scarred, eyes burning. "They are not just after me now," he said. Eli stood beside him. "Then we fight. But not with fear, with hope." Karak looked at the rising sun. A war was coming, but for the first time in his life he didn't feel alone. The hunters arrive. The desert was no longer silent. Helicopters circled the sky. Strange lights blinked in the clouds above. Soldiers stood at checkpoints around Dry Hollow, but none of them knew what was truly coming. Eli did, and so did Karak. They were hiding in the old mining tunnels, deep underground. The walls were cracked, the air thick with dust and old silence. Karak sat in the shadows, one hand pressed to his chest where blue sparks still leaked. Eli looked at the broken warrior beside him. "How bad is it?" he asked. Karak's voice was low and rough. "Not repairable, without power." "Where can we get power?" Karak stared into the darkness. "The tower, where they watch your skies." "The observatory?" Karak nodded. "Enough solar charge for one more fight." Eli stood up. "Then we get it." As Eli prepared to sneak out, Karok reached out and placed a heavy claw on his arm. "You do not have to do this, you are a child." Eli shook his head. "You're not just a weapon, you're my friend, and I protect my friends." Karok was silent. Something inside him, deep beneath the metal and code, felt something like pride. That night, as Eli climbed toward the observatory, a thunder-like sound shook the sky. But the clouds were clear. He looked up and stopped, breathing. 3 ships appeared overhead, black as shadows, silent and smooth. They didn't fall. They floated, watching. Then they split apart. One above the town, one above the desert, one heading straight toward the hills, toward Karok. In the military base outside Dry Hollow, alarms went off. Generals screamed into radios. But nothing worked. The ships blocked every signal, every satellite, every weapon system. And then, the first attack came. The ship above the desert opened like a blooming flower. From inside dropped 3 figures, not soldiers, not machines, hunters, sleek, tall, faceless, blades for arms. Their movements were too fast to track. One leapt across a mile in seconds. Another vanished mid-air. The third landed in front of a soldier convoy and wiped it out in 10 seconds. These weren't invaders, these were executioners. Eli ran. The observatory sat on the edge of a cliff. He climbed inside through a side door and looked for the power panel. Come on. He pulled open the box and connected Karok's small transfer cable, a thin wire glowing with red light. "Charging," he whispered into the wire. Back in the mine, Karok's eyes lit up. Slowly, power flowed back into him. His fingers twitched. Armor plates shifted. He stood, and for the first time in days, he felt strong. Karok stepped into the moonlight outside the mine. He could feel them now, 3 hunters, close. They moved like wolves, silent and circling. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He waited. One appeared above him on a rock, crouched like a shadow. Another crept behind him. The third stood in front, blade arms humming. Karok opened his arms. "You came." The hunter in front tilted its head. "Return or be deleted," it said in a flat, lifeless voice. Karok stepped forward. "I remember the voices of the children you made me silence." The hunters didn't respond. Karok's chest glowed. "Bright. I will never obey again." Then the fight began. Karok charged the nearest hunter and slammed it into the rocks, shattering stone. The second leapt, blade slicing, but Karok spun midair and blocked it with his arm, sparks flying. The third fired a pulse weapon. Karok dodged, rolled, and countered with a shockwave from his chest. Eli saw it from the hill, red lights flashing like lightning, the ground shaking under his feet. He's fighting. All of them. Down in town, people started screaming. The ship above Dry Hollow finally moved. It sent down a message through every screen, every phone, every radio. A voice, cold and hollow. "This is not your world. Do not protect the broken." Then it dropped something from its hull. A creature, made of smoke and metal. Not a hunter. A destroyer. It walked toward the town. Eli raced back to Karok, sliding down the hills. He found Karok holding his side, one hunter dead at his feet, another wounded but still fighting. "You can't stop them alone." Karok didn't turn. His voice was weaker now. "They are not here for me anymore. They are here because of you." Eli froze. "Me?" Karok looked at him now. "You gave me a choice. That scares them." In the town, the destroyer reached the first building and raised its arms. A wave of sound shattered windows for a mile. People screamed, but before it could strike again, something hit it. Not a bullet. Not a missile. A red blur. Karok. He had moved faster than a jet, slamming into the destroyer mid-attack. The 2 titans crashed into the sand, fighting like giants. Eli ran toward them, yelling. But he was too close. The destroyer's arm fired a pulse and hit the ground near Eli. The force threw him into the air. He landed hard and didn't move. Karok saw it happen, and something in him snapped. He stood slowly, body shaking. His red lights turned white, not with rage but grief. The destroyer struck again. Karok didn't dodge. He caught the arm and broke it in two. Then he roared, a sound that echoed across the desert, not of pain, not of hate, of loss. He grabbed the destroyer and slammed it into the earth over and over until nothing remained but metal pieces and sparks. Silence returned. Karok rushed to Eli, falling to his knees. The boy's eyes opened. Barely. You didn't run? Karok nodded, his voice shaking. I never will again. The remaining hunter ships began to pull back. They had failed. They had seen something they didn't understand. Not strength, not war, compassion. And they feared it, as dawn broke. The people of Dry Hollow came out from hiding. They saw the wreckage, the bodies, and in the middle of it all, a creature once called a monster, kneeling beside a child holding his hand. The mayor stepped forward. What is it? Eli sat up weakly. His name is Karok, and he saved us. Broken chains. The sun rose slowly over Dry Hollow, shining down on broken buildings and burned earth. People stepped into the streets, quiet and unsure. Soldiers lowered their weapons. The Zarth ship in the sky had vanished. The strange creatures had fallen. But the fear had not. At the center of the town square, Karok sat beside Eli, who lay unconscious on the ground, his body wrapped in a blanket. Blood stained the boy's shirt. His chest rose and fell slowly. Karok didn't move. He hadn't, since the battle ended. He didn't speak. He didn't power down. He just waited. The townspeople gathered around but kept their distance. Some whispered. Others watched in silence. He's protecting the boy. Is it crying? Is it even alive? A military truck rolled in. Soldiers stepped out. This time, no guns raised. General Reeves approached Karok carefully. He looked at Eli, then at the creature beside him. Is the boy alive? He asked. Karok turned his glowing eyes to the general. Barely. The general nodded slowly. We'll take him to the hospital. Karok stood. I go with him. No, the general replied. We can't. Karok took one step forward. The air pulsed around him. The ground cracked. I go with him. The general swallowed his fear. All right. Eli was taken to the nearest emergency facility just outside of town. Karok followed, walking silently beside the ambulance. No one dared stop him. Doctors rushed to help the boy. Karok waited outside the operating room, his claws folded tightly. Inside, machines beeped. Eli's heart was weak. Karok stared through the glass and whispered, Don't leave me. Hours passed. Then, worse news. The machines began to fail. Eli's heartbeat dropped again and again. The doctor said he needed something they didn't have. A rare compound only found in off-world medicines. Nothing from Earth could save him. Karok watched the light fade from the boy's face. Then, something inside him unlocked. Old memory files, suppressed by the Zarth, buried deep in his code. He closed his eyes and saw it. A chamber of glowing crystals. A healing vault used to restore injured Zarth commanders. Only living war beasts were allowed near it. The vault was guarded. Hidden in the Zarth mothership, it still existed. But reaching it meant Karok had to return to the place where he was made. And broken. That night, Karok stood on the hospital roof. The wind was cold. He stared at the stars and said nothing. But deep inside him, voices rose. Not from outside, not from the sky, from within. The Zarth had left something behind. Not just hunters, not just ships, a control signal, hidden in Karok's brain, and now they were using it. He dropped to one knee. The voice filled his head. Return to us. He grabbed his skull, claws shaking. You are not free. You never were. Images flashed, burning cities, screaming people, rivers of fire. The voice of his masters calling him a perfect weapon. Karok roared and slammed his fists into the rooftop. The ground shook. Alarms went off. A nurse ran up, frightened. Izao, everything okay? Karok didn't answer. He stared into the sky with rage and pain in his eyes. The Zarth were not trying to kill him anymore. They were trying to take his mind. Later, Karok stood by Eli's bed. The boy's breathing was slow. Karok lowered himself beside him. "You made me more than a machine," he whispered, "but I cannot save you, without returning to the place I swore to forget." Eli stirred slightly. His hand moved. Karok touched it gently and made a decision. By morning, Karok walked into the military base, where the remaining officers and scientists were reviewing Zarth tech. Everyone went silent. He walked up to the central screen, looked the general in the eyes and said, "Send me into orbit." The general raised an eyebrow. "Why? I know where they keep the cure. You want us to launch you into space alone?" Karok nodded. "I was made to survive in space. No ship needed." "And if you don't come back?" Karok looked at the boy's photo on the wall behind the desk. "Then at least he lives." The next day, the base engineers built a launch ring using salvaged Zarth tech and Earth satellite tools. It was risky, dangerous, but Karok didn't care. He stood on the launch pad, armor sealed tight, eyes burning red. The general saluted him. "Why are you doing this? Why risk yourself for one boy?" Karok's voice was clear. "Because he saw me, before I saw myself." Then the engines fired. Karok was launched into the sky like a comet of vengeance. Hours passed. Earth lost contact. People feared he had died. Doctors told Eli's mother there was nothing more they could do. But just before sunrise, something burned across the clouds. A second meteor. No Karok. He returned, falling from the sky like a war god, carrying a small orb in his hand, glowing blue with life energy. The compound. He burst into the hospital doors. Within minutes, doctors used it. Eli's heartbeat returned. His eyes opened. Karok watched from the hallway, silent. That night, as the boy slept peacefully, Karok walked alone into the desert. The stars above were quiet, but he wasn't. Inside him, the Zarth control signal still whispered, "We will break you." But Karok stood tall. His body was built for war, but his soul, now forged by love. The last war. The sky above Earth changed. A massive shadow appeared behind the moon, dark, silent, and terrifying. The Zarth had returned, not in silence, not with a warning, with a fleet. 100 warships, shaped like knives, lit the black sky. They didn't come to take Karok back. They came to end the planet that dared to protect him. Inside the military base, alarms screamed. Every screen showed the same image, a countdown in alien language, a number ticking down. 12 hours until... What? Karok stood in the command center, watching it silently. His eyes glowed with deep light. Not fear, not anger, readiness. General Reeves turned to him. "Is that real? A world-ending weapon?" Karok nodded. "Yes, they call it the silence wave. It burns thought, memory, soul. Your planet will go quiet forever." The general asked, "Can we stop it?" Karok's voice dropped. "No, but I can." Eli sat on a hospital bed nearby, watching Karok with tired eyes. He had survived, but the cure had changed him. Something inside him felt connected. Like a bond to Karok had been burned into his heart. He stood up slowly and walked to him. "You're not going alone." Karok looked down. "Yes, I am. You said we protect each other." Karok placed a clawed hand gently on Eli's shoulder. "I will protect you, even if I don't return." Eli held back tears. "Promise me, you'll try to come back." Karok didn't answer right away. Then, "I promise." Across the world, people panicked. Cities emptied. Satellites failed. The Zarth fleet grew larger by the hour. But in the skies above Dry Hollow, something new was built. Using Karok's knowledge, human engineers and alien tech, they created a vessel, half Earth, half Zarth. A ship like no other. Karok called it the Breaker. It wasn't made to escape. It was made to go straight into the heart of the Zarth. As the countdown dropped to 4 hours, Karak stood before the ship. He turned to the people behind him. Scientists, soldiers, civilians. His voice echoed through the loudspeakers. I was made to destroy. Programmed to follow, trained to kill. He paused, looking at Eli. But a human child taught me to choose. And now, I choose you. He climbed into the ship and launched. As the ship entered orbit, Karak activated a deep core inside his chest. It began to hum. Slowly. Building energy. He had one chance. He wasn't going to stop the fleet. He was going to end the signal, the same control signal used to enslave him and thousands of others across the galaxy. At the center of the Zarth command ship was the Mind Spire, a living antenna. If destroyed, it would break every chain. But it was guarded by the Zarth High Lord, Karak's creator. The breaker pierced through enemy ships, dodging beams, cutting through swarms. Karak didn't speak. He didn't fear. He remembered Eli's face, his words, his kindness. That was his armor now. He reached the command ship, landed hard, broke through its hull. Zarth machines swarmed him, but they were no match. He moved like a storm of red and black, claws spinning, chest glowing. He fought with rage, yes, but controlled rage, not blind fury. He reached the Mind Spire, and then the voice returned. You were never free. The Zarth High Lord stepped from the shadows, tall, thin, glowing with blue fire. He looked at Karak like a disappointed father. You were my finest weapon. Karak stood tall. I am no longer yours. You think kindness makes you strong? Karak raised his claws. No. But it makes me alive. The fight was brutal, claw against energy, flame against blade. The High Lord struck Karak with memories, projected directly into his mind. Screams from the past. Children he failed. Cities he burned. Karak dropped to his knees, shaking. The voice whispered again. You are not a hero. You are a graveyard. Karak closed his eyes, but this time he didn't try to forget. He remembered Eli's hand reaching for him. A peanut butter sandwich, water in a bottle, a voice saying, You're not a monster. He stood, roared, and punched through the Mind Spire. It exploded in a pulse of white energy. Across the galaxy, chains broke. War beasts everywhere lifted their heads. The Zarth control signal died. Back on Earth, the Zarth fleet froze. Ships powered down. One by one, they drifted, then burned out. Silence. But the explosion had torn the breaker apart. Karak floated in space, body broken, no signal, no sound, no light in his eyes. On Earth, Eli waited. He watched the sky for hours, then days. The world celebrated victory, but he knew something was missing. Someone. Then, one evening, a fire appeared in the sky, small, flickering, falling fast. A pod. It crashed near the old desert crater. Eli ran, past soldiers, past fences. He reached it. The hatch opened slowly. Inside, Karak, barely alive, armor blackened, but his eyes opened. White. Light flickered. Eli smiled through tears. You promised, Karak whispered, and I kept it. Peace found. The desert was quiet again. A cool wind moved across the sand, carrying the scent of dust, rust, and something new. Hope. Karak sat at the edge of the old crater, staring into the sky. The war was over. The Zarth were gone. The control, signal that once ruled his mind, had been broken forever. But peace felt strange, heavy, like silence after a storm. 3 weeks had passed since Karak fell from the sky. His body was damaged, his systems barely stable. Earth's scientists offered to repair him, but he refused full repairs. I don't want to be what I was, he said. Instead, he let his metal body scar. The cracks remained. His glow dimmed. He wanted to feel every wound, to remember. Eli visited him every day. The boy was healing slowly, his body weak but his heart strong. Doctors said he should rest more, but Eli had other plans. He wanted to show Karak the world he fought for. One morning, Eli brought something strange, a small plant. It had green leaves and soft white flowers. He placed it in Karak's metal, and Karak stared at it. "What is it?" "It's called peace lily," Eli said with a smile. "It survives even in dry places. Like us." Karak gently touched a petal with one claw. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then he whispered, "Beautiful. But peace never lasts easily. Not for a war beast. Not for a world still afraid." Despite everything Karak had done, fear still lived in the hearts of men. Governments argued behind closed doors. News stations showed his battle footage on repeat. Some wanted to honor him. Others wanted to lock him away. A few wanted him gone. A secret vote was held. The decision: remove Karak from Earth. Force him off-world, quietly. That night, a unit of armored soldiers arrived at the crater with a sleek, black ship. General Reeves stepped out. His face was hard, cold. "Karak," he said, "you must come with us." Eli stood between them. "No, he saved us. You can't do this." Reeves didn't flinch. "He's not human, and he's too dangerous." Karak looked at the boy, then at the soldiers, then at the sky. He stepped forward. "I will go, if it brings peace." Eli's eyes filled with tears. "You promised you'd stay." Karak knelt beside him. "I did, and I will, just not in body." He tapped Eli's chest. "But in here." Karak stepped onto the ship. The door closed. The engines hummed. Eli watched the only real friend he'd ever had rise into the night sky. He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He stood tall, like Karak had taught him. But the story didn't end there. 3 months later, a strange thing happened. Across the galaxy, on forgotten planets, broken moons, lost colonies, former war beasts began to appear, creatures once feared, now planting trees, teaching children, helping. They spoke one name, not their creators, not the Zarth, but Eli, the boy who tamed the monster, the human who changed weapons. Heart Karak had not vanished. He had chosen exile, but not silence. He moved from world to world, finding others like him. War machines, survivors, lost souls, and gave them a choice: to live, to feel, to forgive themselves. Back on Earth, Eli stood on a stage at the United Space Assembly. He was now 16. In front of leaders from 50 worlds, he told his story. Not about war, not about fighting, but about kindness. "How do you change a weapon?" he asked. "You don't give it a bigger enemy. You give it a reason to stop fighting." The crowd was silent. Then, standing ovation. Later that night, Eli stood alone outside looking at the stars. A soft beep came from his pocket. A small device, alien-made, blinked once. Message appeared on its screen. "I found a garden on a dead planet. Planted your peace lily. It grew." Eli smiled. "You kept your promise." Years passed. Eli became a peace ambassador. He helped create a new alliance between humans and freed war beasts. They called it the Accord of Living Minds. Its symbol? Broken claw holding a flower. One day on a distant planet, a child asked, "Is Karak real?" Eli smiled. "He's out there, maybe watching right now." The child looked up. "Do you think he misses us?" Eli nodded. "Every day. But he doesn't want us to remember him for what he did." He knelt down beside the child. "He wants us to remember what he became." Far away, across stars and silence, Karak stood alone on a cliff of red stone. A garden of white flowers grew behind him. The wind moved through his cracked armor. He closed his eyes. He didn't hear orders. He didn't feel pain. He only felt the warmth of a boy's hand and the soft sound of peace. The end.